Man, you will not believe who I have sitting next to me today. Man, I've been waiting for this for a long time. This young lady is an absolute icon in the city of Detroit, and a soon-to-be icon across the country and all over the world. The phrase "Google me" really applies to her, because when you search charity, singer, and Detroit online, a plethora of content will pop up for this insanely talented individual. She grew up in the Missionary Baptist Church. You can tell by the way that she sings. She bears her entire soul. Her live shows are truly a spiritual and cathartic experience for not only her audience, but her as well. A few words that come to mind when I think about this young lady: visionary, vulnerable, creator, eclectic, leader, artistic, gumbo. Yeah, that's right. If you add a cup of R&B with a teaspoon of neo soul, a dash of folk and pop, a few drops of funk, a hint of acoustic, add some hip hop and some trap music and sprinkle some gospel on top, you stir it around in a pot and you heat it up, you got gumbo. She's performed with legendary R&B artists such as Eric Roberson, Angie Stone, Eric Benét, Lalah Hathaway, Bilal. Raphael Sadiq just followed her last week. I saw that with my own two eyes. She's been featured in Our Detroit, BLAC Detroit, Detroit Metro Times, Detroit Free Press, HuffPost, and Billboard. She took the world by storm in 2015 when she released her adoring EP, Yellow. And you can tell she was madly in love when she wrote them songs. Then somebody must have pissed her off, because she dropped a 14-track atomic bomb in 2020 with her debut album, Tenderheaded, which is an absolute classic, no skips. Shout out to the camper at summer camp at age 13 who told her that her music should be played on the radio to impact people of all races and different ages. Over 1 million streams on Spotify? Yeah, God definitely spoke through that person. She shines bright like the sun, so bright that if the moon eclipsed her, she'd still be the brighter one. So grab your solar eclipse glasses when you're looking at her, because you don't want to damage your retinas. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to the one and only Charity. What's up, Charity?
First of all, let's pause. Let's pause. My heart has been very full lately. Mm-hmm. The intro, I'm like, oh, you gonna start the episode crying?
Oh, listen.
But that is the space that I've been in, reflecting over this concept of 10,000 hours.
Wow.
And having put them in and finally feeling like that.
Whoa.
And so to hear all of those things that you just said, for you to know those things, for a person that is not my mother to know those things about me, that speaks to the work. And I'm like, oh, you gonna start a podcast in tears.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, man, I've been a fan of yours since 2020. When my friend Detroit Red, shout out to Detroit Red, she said, you gotta listen to this album.
Yeah.
And everybody was going through it that year. We didn't know what was going on, what was gonna happen. And I'm gonna be honest, that album kind of got me through. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It spoke to me, because obviously I fall in that millennial category. Yeah. So, man.
Yeah, a lot of people said that about Tenderheaded, and it's funny because yesterday I was crying on the internet, and I've cried on the internet 3 times. Yeah. Yesterday I was on live a couple months ago talking about what this year has meant for me from a like inner work plus outer work perspective, and then the first time I cried on the internet was around Tenderheaded. You know how Spotify and Apple Music give you those end of year recaps? They tell you the songs you played the most, the albums you played the most. And Tenderheaded came out February 28th, the last day of Black History Month, 2020. And so you know that 2 weeks later, quarantine happens and we're all forced indoors. And this happened after I had done a lot of work around figuring out what my brand was, how I could create experiences where people could connect to my music. Then I would package those up online and create this desire where people wanted to be in those rooms, but it was all about rooms, and it was all about creating in-person experiences, right? So I was putting those singles out with dinner parties where we would then unpack the music over dinner, or conversational events in hair salons. And so I had this plan, and I had dates in Chicago and Atlanta, and this energy and this momentum, and I could no longer do any of these things because it's illegal to gather, right? Yeah. And so I had just decided, because Tenderheaded had also been done for a while before it came out. Yeah. And these are the songs that this is my debut album. So some of these songs reach back to me being 22 years old. And it comes out and the world shuts down. And I was so upset about it. Wow. I felt so bitter that I couldn't do with this album what I thought I was supposed to. But so many people, for this indie artist, which at the time I probably have 8,000 followers on Instagram, so many people, it's their most listened to album of the year in 2020.
Wow.
And it moved me to tears. I was just kind of on my story talking and I start to cry at how God always gives me beauty for ashes. He is always showing me, I got this, I got you. It is my plan for your life. It is the way that I am using you. This music was created for this moment where people have to go inward. And as much as you think that it's losing its validity because you can't perform it, people need it in a different way. It's an album you experience up close and personal. And you kind of need to silence the noise in order to really connect in those ways.
Wow, great point. Yeah.
And so, I was going through it. A lot of people were going through it, and Tenderheaded helped get them through it.
Absolutely.
And I say all that to say that's my first time crying on the internet, and I've been crying on the internet since.
Man, but it also shows your humility that you don't take any of this for granted, because people like time is something we don't get back. So if they're spending time actually listening to your music, dissecting your lyrics, it's good to show your gratitude in that type of way, because a lot of people think it's expected.
And it's not for me. I am so deeply grateful for everything that works out. Like with the tiny desk yesterday, I knew that Top Shelf was a smaller percentage of the applicants, but I'm thinking they're probably going to show like 15 seconds of maybe they're doing like 50 to 100 submissions per live stream. And they had done 3 live streams. So I'm thinking probably about 300. I had decided that. And then I realized from stumbling on an article that there's 45.
Out of 7,000 plus.
My good friend who got her degree in math had to explain to me that is less than 1%.
Yeah, I did. I'm an engineer, so I did the calculations too. I said, man.
It's like 0.6.
Exactly. Look at that. Crazy. 0.6. And then you had 12 hours to get the band together, I think, right? And rehearse. You had to design the stage. You had the songs in the key of life. Album cover, on the desk, which I thought was really cool because the dude who's the host of Top Shelf mentioned that.
He did.
Right.
He paid attention to that detail. That entire day, it was like the highest adrenaline probably that I've operated under ever, because I decided at 11 something a.m. I do actually need to do this. When Tiny Desk first announced the competition, several people sent it to me like, come on, you're made for this. And I still deal with some imposter syndrome and some, is it worth it? I'm thinking about the 7,000 before I even know that it's 7,000 and I'm only one. And is it really am I gonna win? And I'll talk myself silently out of doing things. Somebody reminded me, a good friend of mine, she's an artist as well, out of Chicago. She's like, where's your submission? Because everybody was just posting theirs on that day. And I'm like, you're right. Where is my submission? And so from 11 to 6 p.m., it was just all prep. So 3 of those guys I never played with before.
Man, people like, that's incredibly, just the fact that you never played with them before, that's really hard to mesh together in that short amount of time. And I just want people to understand how insanely difficult that is.
I'm not sure people understand. Like, even though it's just one song, we are performing a song. We have to get it right.
Yeah.
And these are people who, maybe they've heard it, but they don't know the parts like that yet. And so the drummer, the keyboard player, and the guitar player, I had never played with them before. The bass player, he did my PJ Morton show with me last summer. So but Cruel was brand new, so nobody played Cruel before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the videographer, I knew that aesthetically it had to represent my brand, and so that meant that I'm killing myself trying to make this happen. I'm running to Novi Mall to make sure everybody is in orange, myself included. I thought that I would do it at the studio that I typically work out of, and they couldn't accommodate me. So 54 Sound where we did it. Shout out to Steve Cap. He was a lifesaver that day, the audio engineer. I had never been there before. I never met any of these people. And I struggle with asking for help. I struggle with needing it. I struggle with accepting it. I never want to feel like a burden or like I'm overwhelming people. And so that entire day was stretching me in a way that I needed to be. I needed to allow myself to be supported, and the only way for me to really get that was to be forced to ask.
That's the only way you know what your limits are, right? You had to prove to yourself what you was capable of in that short time span. It's one thing to have all the time in the world to do something, but 12 hours, and then you submitted it minutes before the deadline. I mean, the top shelf host said that too.
Yeah, like 9 minutes. With 9 minutes to spare, we submitted that. We were making some tweaks to the audio. Ideally, we would have had a whole day to mix that audio. We had 30, 45 minutes. And so there's little things that we're trying to do to get the vocal to sound as clean as possible, bring the drums up in the mix, like all of these different things. And so the videographer, he's at home like, audio, y'all got, so we finally sent it to him. He sent me the video. I'm uploading it to YouTube. Internet speed is also a thing. But somehow I was calm. I was like, yeah, it's gone.
In the midst of the chaos, you was like, I'm chill.
Yeah. On my recap video, there's like a clip of me just like, I say something like, here's me not having an anxiety attack despite the fact that we got 15 minutes left before this deadline comes. And, I submitted it and I let it go. I posted clips on Instagram. They are some of my highest performing, highest engaged with moments that Tiny does. But that was the beauty of it for me, that I had stretched myself. I had learned how beautiful it is to be supported, that I don't lose any dignity in needing help and accepting help. And it was helping me promote the song. That was it. Wow. And then the top shelf thing happens. Like, I get that email last week and I'm like, wow, this is so special. I'll make sure that I share this with community, because community helped me make this happen. And then yesterday, just maybe an hour before the episode came on YouTube, I see that I'm one of 45.
Crazy.
Yeah, I see that I'm in the 0.6%.
Crazy. So we're gonna have to take it back. You grew up on the west side of Detroit, right?
I did.
Okay, so describe your household to me. You mother, father, siblings, all of that.
Mom and dad are married and they are strict, devout Christians. Ooh. So much so that we are being homeschooled, all of us. Yep. So I am the second youngest out of 4 sisters. And we grew up devout. Our household was kind of militant in that you wasn't watching that on TV, you wasn't listening to that music, so we listened to gospel, and then like the Temptations and Bill Withers and like classic R&B soul that was
soulful
clean.
Music. Yep.
And so we had to do a lot of catching up on like Black pop culture staples like Friday or Juice or.
So y'all none of the references in school y'all was like, wait, what?
For the very most part, but we weren't at school.
Yeah, I got you.
I went to Winans Academy for 1 year before I graduated. So I went there in the 11th grade and I was so shell shocked from being homeschooled. I was like, guys, I can't do this. Like, I'm too accustomed to being on my own time. And so I actually graduated a year early. Nice, because homeschooling kind of, you'll get extra credits here and there from taking a class at community college or stuff like that. So very academically rigorous home, spiritually rigorous home. That I grew up in. I couldn't talk to boys on the phone till I was 16. So
hey, that's how my daughter. It might be 17. I'm just kidding.
So there's a real sheltering. But my dad is a Renaissance man. He's a reader. He is a poet, even though he's not a poet. Like, he's got these poems that he wrote when he was 27. He's that kind of guy. A preacher, very well studied. a theologian and has made me a theologian in my own little unofficial way.
Yeah.
And so our household we're very tight knit. We're probably enmeshed, all of us. My mom is the soul of the family. She's the laughter. She gonna fall asleep during a movie that we're like, Mom, this is critically acclaimed. And she's napping because she has a deeper connection to pleasure. My eldest sister, she introduced me to art. She's like, you guys are going to care about Stevie Wonder. And even like last December, she saw to it that we saw Alvin Ailey in New York. We always see Alvin Ailey in Detroit, but she's like, I want you guys to experience this in New York. And so
Amon Milner's sister performed for them, right? Shout out to Amon Milner and her sister.
Yeah, yep. So India is actually in a different, larger company. So in December, she was the first dancer to do is it Dewdrop in the, don't get me to lying, India. She definitely made history though. Yeah. But yeah, Iman is another one that we share that connection to Alvin Ailey. Her mom danced with Alvin Ailey. I remember.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yep. It was her mother. Yes. Okay, my bad.
Yep.
So the question I have, because you talked about homeschooling, I guess the downside could be kids being sheltered, right? And then by the time they get out into the real world, maybe there's some anxiety. There's like, oh my God, sensory overload. But the upside, I think, is that people who are like, who graduate from like the universities today, they may be indoctrinated to think a certain type of way. So you're taught what to think versus how to think. So I think when you're homeschooled, maybe there's a higher propensity to be a person who really thinks for themselves versus like somebody can feed you something and you just take it at face value.
Yeah. I definitely think that we learn how to think because there's a lot of independent learning.
There we go. Yeah.
There's a lot of independent learning. So I know how to solve a problem. I know how to get information because even though your parents are your teachers, you also become your own teacher because, you know, they reach certain limits as well and you just have to figure things out. But then there's other ways that homeschooling does make you, because the thing about it is homeschooling, it's rare that it comes without a dash or more of like evangelistic like Christianity. It's very, people were homeschooling because they wanted their kids like out of the world. And so I think a lot of us homeschoolers have had to shake a little bit of that programming around being so like, you know, it's the, you're in the world, but not of the world. And so
I got you.
Sometimes it's difficult to like, it's like you're above everything. You can't indulge in nothing. And so even for me as an artist, I've had to pull back the ways that like, you know, I'm too good for stuff. And I think some of that comes from being on.
You're talking about like a more self-righteous or sanctimonious sort of.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes, very sanctimonious me. Oh my goodness. And I'm shaking a lot of that now, but it's been painful.
You seem like the opposite of that today though, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's taken a lot of work. I mean, there's a part of me that felt like I don't have to put my music out. I don't have to drop music all the time.
Wait.
I mean, if you notice.
So now we about to talk about responsibility. Okay, go ahead.
This year I decided I am going to let people see me. I am going to, I mean, there's been weeks that like I posted a reel every single day or multiple reels every day. Like that is very much a departure from who I have been. I had kind of decided like I am one of the elite and I can release music when I decide to. And a lot of that I think is fear disguising itself as like arrogance. And I have decided now that I want people to experience me and I want people to experience my art. But the way that I've had to come off of that sanctimonious high horse, it has been it's been a painful process. It's not been easy.
No. It's almost like dying to self. Everything you thought to be this, you have to basically do without it in order to become reborn again, right? It's a changing your way of thinking, changing your perspective and how you move in the world. So yeah, kudos to you for that. So anyway, you were in your dad's church choir, right?
Yeah.
You also was in his nursing home ministry.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
right. Yeah.
Right. So my dad, we were in the youth choir at church, and my dad after church, so Sundays are we just at services all day. So we go from Gospel Temple Missionary Baptist Church to a nursing home not far away from church, where he preaches to the elderly. And then after he preaches, my sisters and I, we sing. So we learned harmony and hymns together. And I was the alto, and I was very much unenthused about singing. Like, I think I have a very insignificant part in these songs.
So at that time, you didn't even see the gift inside of you?
Oh, absolutely not.
Wow. Okay.
No way. My oldest sister, Sade, is the lead in all of these moments because of age, because of ability, because of she's actually a leader. And she was doing like pageants. She was really pursuing a career, or at least an impact by way of music. And I was like the middle child.
Wow, yeah.
Very insecure and very I'm okay hiding. I'm okay not being seen.
Yeah.
And what happens is my parents had us in, we all had to take music lessons. So we played piano. We took lessons from Miss Cobb around the corner in Rosedale Park. And Miss Cobb was getting a little older, and she kept popping my hand with a pencil. And I was like, I don't know if it's that serious for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got this like German approach
Wow.
to piano lessons,
Yeah.
and I'm sensitive as hell, and
Yeah.
I'm about to cry. Like, please stop
Yeah.
like physically abusing me
Wow.
for like messing up chords.
Right.
So I told my dad, like, I don't want to play piano anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
my mom, I'm really grateful for this, because she was like, okay, then pick another instrument. And I picked guitar.
Guitar. That's how you got into playing the guitar? At what age?
13.
Wow. Who taught you?
An old white man named Joel Palmer. I give him so much credit
Shout out to Joel Palmer.
because he approached music with so much pleasure. Like, it was all about, well, what songs do you like? And what do you want to learn to play? And I'm like, well, I like Stevie Wonder, and I like India.Arie. And so I'm this 13-year-old who went from getting my hands popped in piano to now playing video by India.Arie. And I'm seeing my ability to create. And daily, that is affecting my self-confidence and my love for myself. I always say, like, when you see that you can create something, you will love yourself more deeply.
Whoa.
It's something about
Whoa.
experiencing your human ability to make something out of nothing that I think makes us feel closer to God, and it just gives you a bit of a boost. And so
It brings us closer to God when we're living in our purpose like that, right?
yeah. And so I started to experience that as like this preteen. And I was writing poems. I was like this emotional 13-year-old. So I was writing poems, and then I started playing guitar, and I'm playing India.Arie songs. So eventually those poems start to turn into songs.
And your Sounds Like Love, I think it came out in 2011, but I can tell that you were influenced by India.Arie, to be honest, because it was more inspirational stuff, upbeat, that type of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Around that time, the Yellow EP, it's heavily influenced by even, I would say, Corinne Bailey Rae and Leanne LaHavis. These were the girls that were really teaching me how to write. And so, Mr. Palmer tells my mom, because the lessons are happening at a homeschool co-op, and we have like showcases or recitals at the end of semesters, and I played God Bless the Child by Billie Holiday. And I remember, I don't even know if I would be able to play it today. It was advanced. Like, I really was really working hard for it. And he told my mom after that showcase, Charity's not just going to play, she's going to play.
Whoa.
Yep. And my mom held on to that in a way that I think directed us going forward. Like, she's gonna play, so keep playing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was good that your mama listened to that. She heard that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And she kind of nourished that in you, or she at least pushed you in a way, because some parents would have been like, pick something else. So it's good that you had that support. Yeah,
she's always been really impressed by my ability to write. Her and her sisters, my aunts, they've all, like, I play a song for them on guitar and everybody's in tears. And it's something about that that's like, y'all could just be impressed that, like, this is your baby doing this, but you still crying. So it's something here.
It's something here.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna, because my mom always told me, I remember I told her I wanted to be a basketball player. She was like, listen, you smart. You ain't really that good at that, in a nice way. Yeah. But when somebody is crying, like, your parents don't gotta cry. Like, that's real emotion at that point.
Yeah, my parents have affirmed me in a beautiful way. My dad called me. I didn't want my dad to hear cruel because he is a righteous man. And also he is, my dad's older. My dad's 82 this year. Yeah, so my mom is his third marriage. We're his third set of kids. And so he's older. And he is conservative, and we don't talk about stuff like that. And so, you know, the opening line to Cruel is like, I was just there, right, yesterday, naked in your bed. And it's like, I'm like that with my dad.
Or at least you remember it that way. I remember.
You see what I'm saying? So he called me, and it was funny. It was right before I went on stage at Grand Rapids, and he's like, honey, I just heard Cruel. Oh my goodness, the emotion, the tone.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, like I either he heard it and decided to not make a moment out of it, or he connected more to the feeling than the lyrics. But that's who my parents have been to me when it comes to affirming the gift. And I'm so
okay. We about to get sidetracked now for a minute.
Yeah.
So let's get into Cruel, right? Hide your heart inside my body, tear me apart, then hide the body. No evidence of what we shared, no trace of you anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's like, listen, man, I think honestly, if J. Cole or somebody like that or Kendrick Lamar rapped those lyrics, people would literally, they wouldn't tell the difference. Like, your pen game is phenomenal. The fact that you can write something like that, sing it as an R&B artist, but yet there's so much depth and nuance and just entendres, double entendre, all of that type of stuff. Just, that's crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, wait 1 second. It's so flagrant. It's outrageous the way you decorate a space and leave it vacant.
Yeah.
Lay your heart and hands on me. Make me down my sanity. Are you something I imagined? Because you left like nothing happened.
I'm proud of that writing. I ain't even.
Come on, man.
I'm proud of it. And it's such a result of multiple things that were happening. Like, I remember when I was in the studio writing Cruel, it was from a really authentic place of like, I had been in a relationship for 6.5 years. For the most part, a beautiful, healthy relationship that did not work out. And I was eager because I was sheltered, like I said, and I hadn't had a lot of experiences. I was eager to get out there and have experiences. And I didn't realize like how cold it was outside. You know what I mean? Like how men are not always handling these casual situations that are undefined with care, and how you'll be in a space with somebody that feels really intimate, and the next day they're treating you like a stranger. And a sensitive person like me who hasn't had a lot of experiences, like I couldn't handle that. Like I was so wounded. And it's funny, when I wrote that line, I called Iman on FaceTime to run it by her, like, does this make sense? And she was like, what? Like, because
she had probably more experience, right?
Yes. And also was understanding like that it was special from like you said, like the double entendre and all of that. But I also was connected to other women at the time who were like, this is also post 2020. Everybody was out there shit. I really feel like that. Like 2020, everybody had these like extreme life changes. Some long-term relationships are ending. And in 2021, people are overcompensating for all the time they spent in the house. Yeah. And so it's a lot of wild shit going on.
A lot of hedonic, behavior.
Yeah, it was dark. and as a result of that, a lot of the women who thought they could thought they could keep up with that, like, oh, I'm outside behavior, we're really getting wounded. And so
oh my God, you just said that's deep. Anyway, that better not go over y'all heads. Go ahead, keep going.
And so it was me, and it was other women in my community that were having these experiences with men that were longing for intimacy. They really do want to be present on an emotional level with you when they in that moment, because it's something that they need. But then after the fact, they're ghosts. And so it's like, hide your heart inside my body. Like, you are actually connecting with me. You are actually, this is not casual in this moment. Don't act like it is. You're hiding your heart inside of me, and then you tear me apart and hide the body. Like, you cover this up like a pro, and there's no evidence of what we shared. Like, you killed me, and you buried the body like a pro, like a real deal murderer. That's why I had to,
nothing happened.
I had to go bloody in the visuals, because that's what.
Oh, that was dope, man.
And I remember I was actually talking to one of my guy friends. He was living out in LA, and he was talking about how he's like, nah, don't trip. Women out here in LA, he's like, they flagrant. And I remember going, that's a beautiful word. Like, I thought about, when I hear the word flagrant, I think about Rasheed Wallace, because he was constantly getting flagrant files in the 04 era. And I was like, I attach to words like that. I'd be like, man, I want to use that in a song. I like that word. There are songs that there are words that just work in songs. And he was like, nah, these girls will like really play the role and then just really be trying to find a richer guy, to see if they can make that happen. And I remember sending it to him when I got done writing, like, I used your word. It's so flagrant. It's outrageous. How you decorate a space then leave it vacant. Oh, it's like, if you gonna run off, it's no need to hang pictures on the walls. If you don't want to be here long, why are you changing the color of the paint on the walls?
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
The way you oh my God. Okay. So now I don't know which one I like the best between, because everybody loves Cruel, but Eclipse, that's a monster. Special. That's a monster.
Eclipse is special.
It's an absolute monster. I mean, I'm trying to think of what are the lyrics in that. Oh, here we go. Let me see. I wrote songs about you.
That's the part.
There we go. I wrote songs about you.
I built monuments.
In your name. I framed your picture on the altar. Prayed to you every day. Oh my God, how you become my God? Have you become my God? It was them three parts that was chilling, because like in life every day, we in relationships with people or whatever, they take up so much space in our lives. Your lives become so tightly integrated and intertwined with one another, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you've replaced God with them and don't even know it.
When I wrote it, I was in my home studio with my baby sister Shalia, and she's like my writing partner when I get stuck. She has such a beautiful perspective, and she's gonna be a great writer. I know she will.
Shout out to her.
Yeah, shout out to Shalia. She helped me a lot with the season, the Christmas project too.
Well, we gonna get to that.
I was at this place in my life where I was in a really unhealthy like situationship kind of space with somebody that we did not align on anything, and it got so toxic that I was filtering my perspective of myself through his eyes. And I had this nervousness around, okay, how will this be perceived that I did? How's he going to respond to this? And I remember in that moment that, oh my God, how did you become my God? How did you, of all people, become my God? But then to have you become my God, it's like, you have.
It was subtle, but I caught every single, because you basically said the same thing, but in a different way 3 times. And I was like, oh my God, this is it's so much thought that was put into that, man.
It's I will say that part of the song is some of my favorite writing, period. I wrote songs about you. I built monuments in your name, framed your picture on the altar, prayed to you every day. The hyperbole in that, like the willingness to go that far, and I celebrate that in myself as a writer. Like, I am embarrassingly vulnerable. Prayed to you every day. Stand up, girl. No, it was like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was that deep in that emotional state over this person, and when I see how people connect to that, I'm like, thank you. I'm glad it's worth it.
I heard you say something in the article where like vulnerability, you have to be vulnerable in order to heal, and you discover how strong you are through that healing process. It was something like that. So the fact that you are that vulnerable is good, because some people tend to like tuck their tail between their legs and try to hide from it. And it's like, no, you got to feel it. You got to sit in that fire so that you can be resilient and grow and come back stronger, I think, right?
And it's such an interesting place to be in, because that is who God made me, and I cannot escape that. I live my life with a very open heart, and sometimes my heart is actually like an open wound, and I'm walking around just kind of bleeding, and so I've had to learn how not to bleed on other people, and because that's not everybody's calling, right? Some people, their life's work does not require vulnerability. Mine does. And so, to be confident in who I am emotionally, but then also to understand, like, you need this to write in the way that you write. And so my healing processes are so ugly. They're always a mess. Like, and so sometimes I'm on edge, like, what's about to happen? Is it time for me to write new music? Like, what's, because it's been like that. It gets dark and really deep and emotional, because that's my process, and the songs that I get from it are always like, oh, this is worth it. but it don't be easy.
I started questioning all the parts of you, all the parts of me I let you see while you maintain your mystery, while you keep yourself from me. Grab the tissue. I got daddy issues. I've grown accustomed to unavailability. Like, that's vulnerable right there, because you are revealing a part of yourself that people don't know about your upbringing, your family, your experiences, and how it shaped who you are today.
It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, I busted out crying. I was listening to another song that hasn't come out yet called Flowers. And I have another line where I talk about my dad. And it's not necessarily like, I'm not framing him in the most positive light in this line. And I started thinking about Eclipse and that line. And I started thinking about Mr. Time and something I say about my dad and Mr. Time. And I busted out crying. And I was like, how have I talked about my dad in these songs? I was crying to my boyfriend. Like, I don't think people understand how I actually see him. I mean, sobbing. And he was like, you can write something new about it. And I started writing something new about my dad that night. But the reality is that as a daddy's girl, you know, who my dad is has had an extreme impact on my heart, you know, good and bad. You know, he's human as I am. And so, you know, him and my mom divorced. And that process was, oh my God, it molded me. And it created something else that I had to heal from. And to admit those things and then share them with the world, that's something.
Wow.
It feels weird at times. Like, what am I exposing to people about me? I'm
going to be honest with you. Me personally, I didn't take it like that at all. I took it as no parents are perfect. No set of parents are perfect. And like I tell my sister or other people, like, we can complain about the things that our parents did, but if they were perfect, then what would we have to improve upon? Like, you got iPhone 7, iPhone 8, whatever the case may be. So I just looked at it as you're setting the stage, you're providing context, and it's helping me to understand who the artist is even more. That's why I never looked at it as like, oh, she's trying to castigate her father or, you know, making disparaging remarks. I never saw it that way.
I'm grateful for that because it did create, just recently, an anxiety. I'm a huge Beyonce fan, and I've noticed how I'm like, her dad is her world. I can tell it when I watch the Renaissance film, the way that she involves him. There's a scene where he prays with her crew before they go out on stage, and she writes very vulnerably about him in the same way. And it's like, that's because she a daddy's girl. Yeah. So everything that he does, it just weighs on her in a different way. And so I hope my dad understands that.
Oh, absolutely. If he hit you up about Cruel and you said he was a pastor, conservative and all of that stuff, you're doing something right. Yeah. Man, that's crazy, man. So those two songs right there, Eclipse and also Cruel, right? You, like you said, we going back to responsibility. Yeah. Before, it was taking you a minute to create your songs. With this, you kind of push these out fast, but they're just as textured and rich and nuanced as everything that you did in the past, even more so to a degree. So how did you get to that point to where you started saying, regardless of how I feel, I still got to create? You
know what? I started therapy in August of 2022, and I haven't stopped. And it was kind of a traumatic end of a emotional affair that caused me to need some help with the healing. And I'm really fortunate to have a great therapist she was my first attempt, and it worked. I didn't have to date around. And I've done I'm like, my therapy is not just talking. We do EDMR therapy, which is, don't get me to lying, I'm going to mess up what it stands for, but it is reprocessing traumatic memories. And it is literally a dot going back and forth on the screen. Like, we set a scene. So she's like, what's the worst thing about this memory? And what image comes up when you think of it? Where do you feel it in your body? Wow. How intensely do you feel it? I'm like, okay, it's a 7. I see my mom's living room. The worst thing about it is that I feel like I'm unworthy. And I can't remember the first thing I said, but then I watch it. She's like, okay, bring that up. And I watch the ball back and forth. And my brain just starts to, things happen. Things come up. I make discoveries. Sometimes I end up sobbing, crying. And we unpack whatever happened. And then she'll go, okay, let's do it again from right there. And I watch it. And more things come up. Wow.
Wait, what is this called again?
EDMR.
EDMR.
That's the method. by the 5th time, I typically have worked it out in my head. I've worked it out. I'm like, you know what? The reason that I'm so anxious about that is because that made me believe this about myself. But the reality is that shouldn't have happened to me and it wasn't my fault. Like it's crazy how it works. And I am a person who needed to work on my mind.
So no longer did you have, what is it called? Like paralysis through analysis, where sometimes you get stuck.
Man.
Or you go down this rabbit hole and it's hard to come back out.
I didn't even know how much I was being led by fear, and fear doesn't really lead, it just cripples you.
Ooh.
You know, it's not really
it's
a
debilitating
leader.
Yep.
And so therapy brought up so much for me around what some of these traumatic memories had done to me and how they were impacting my ability to pursue my purpose. You have to be fearless to be an artist. This shit is so scary. One, to be as vulnerable. I'm not writing like pop. I'm writing about my real experience. They're very vulnerable. And I'm also having to put myself out there with limited budget, limited resources. So the vision that I have in my mind, I can't always really execute on it. And so when you feel insignificant and when you're being crippled by fear, you'll just not do anything. And so therapy helped me do so much inner work that the outer work just started to match up.
More efficient. I get you.
And I partnered with a person who is so opposite from me that I had no choice but to learn.
Shout out to him, whoever he is.
Yeah.
I like him already based on some of the things you said.
He also in the entertainment industry, but was a DJ, and he's just not as invested in the details. Like we're trying to. We have started.
He was in the crew. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That brother smooth. Yeah.
That's BJ, formerly known as, well, he still is DJ BJ, but
nice.
He's more so in entrepreneurship now. But you know, I say that I'm driven by craft and he's driven by currency.
Oh, perfect balance.
Yes. Perfect. So he's like, we have to make some money, and I'm like, we have to make an impact through our art. You know,
you need both.
Yeah. And so I balance him in that way and he balances me in that way, but it'd be ugly sometimes, like finding the middle, because, you know, that's what feels comfortable to me, being an artist. You know, my favorites are like Frank Ocean and James Blake, artists who are deeply emotional, have kind of a niche audience of people who, you know, will die on the heel of their music, but they're not gonna play stadiums because it's
not as intimate, right?
Yep. And you know, I'm like, that's me. And he's like, you could be as big as you want to be. Cut it out.
We need to get this money. We talking Beyonce level.
He would say that to me, and I would be like, I don't need to be that big. And he'd be like, what? Like, what is your problem? And so I have been able to teach him intentionality, and that it's something really beautiful in the details if you can slow down and pay attention to them. And he has taught me to not get stuck in the details, and that sometimes you just gotta go
and leave room for whatever inspiration. It's like letting go of that control.
Yes.
Yeah, I get you. Because you might think you know where your life is gonna go, going back to Mr. Time, but you have no idea.
I don't have a clue.
Tell God your plans, he gonna laugh at you, right?
Yep. So therapy, really working through my traumas, and partnering with a person that is not comfortable for me has changed my life.
Not comfortable. Oh my God. Because that's the only way you grow, is if you put yourself in uncomfortable situations. I would tell people all the time, like, if you're in a relationship and you guys don't argue, the thing is figuring out how to argue productively. Man. But you want to argue because that's how you learn. That's how you understand each other better. That's how you grow. I mean, the whole purpose of marriage is to have a partner that serves as a mirror to call you out on your BS, to hold you accountable.
I look at because I was single for 3 years before I met him, and I look at the journal entry that I wrote, like, to God, a list of qualities that I wanted, and I got some of them, but a lot of them I didn't get. And I would go to God when we were having some of our worst fights around just being so different from each other, and be like, Ooh. I told you I wanted somebody that read as much as I do. And the reality is I read enough for the both of us.
Straight up.
And I'll get stuck in a book.
Yeah.
And abandon my plan for the month. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, you didn't need a person that
is an exact copy of you. You need somebody to compliment you.
You didn't need a super artsy nigga chair. You just didn't.
We just got to keep it real. You didn't need,
need that. I'm already so deep in my own emotions and my own I'm truly an artist. Like, I'm looking at the clouds and noticing the flowers and studying people, and I'll be checking out at Trader Joe's sometime and notice something about the cashier and like get tears in my eyes, right? Like come up out of that a little bit. And so the person that I partner with is not that way. And it's very uncomfortable for me because we like to connect over the things we have in common with people, but I'm on this growth path. In order to be an artist, I needed to transform over and over and over again to be fearless enough to pursue it. And finding somebody who forces me to transform is a gift.
You talk about being an artist, and along with that, I can tell you're deeply passionate. Like, you put every fiber of your being into your music, but there's a gift and a curse to being passionate, overly passionate. And I consider myself to be similar, although I don't have nearly the amount of talent you got. But the whole passionate part, it's like you can take your pain and transform it into purpose, or maybe use your pain as fuel for your purpose, right? And it's a good thing because, you know, we talked about in the intro how it's cathartic for you. You know what I'm saying? So it gives you a chance to reflect on your experiences, and then you're vulnerable enough to put this out in the music, and it might be helpful to somebody else. It has been, because they feel seen. They feel like they're not the only person that went through this. So that's the gift part of it, right? But then there's a curse, and the curse with me is my passion oftentimes overshadows rationality. So with my wife, when everything's going well, I'm the most, you know, logical person in the world. But if something happens, I instantly jump to, why did you do that to me? You wronged me, or you don't appreciate me, or something like that. And then I end up coming back later. Man, you know what? I was tripping.
I was out my mind in that moment.
But I'm so passionate that it overshadows the rationality sometimes.
Here's where I found the curse for me. I want to, so I put this within the analogy of like intimacy. I want to make love every single time. And we're talking about being an artist. I don't want a quickie ever. So even if I'm just making a reel
that's
for
a great analogy. Go ahead.
Monday, hey, I got to let people know on Monday, keep voting for my tiny desk. Even if I'm just making a reel for Monday, I want to make love. And so I exhaust myself because
there's no highs and lows. It's just
love. And love making requires time, and it just requires a devotion that is really difficult to.
Kids not being in the house.
It requires a certain environment. So like we just went to the Cayman Islands, and Cruel came out on the Friday that we got there. And so I'm editing a video for Cruel's re-entry to
yourself. You edit it?
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of editing myself, and I'm on the plane. I'm supposed to be unwinding. I really should have allowed that to be like a quickie. Cruel's back. We'll just throw that up on Friday, and then when I get back in town, we'll get more intentional about I'm making love. So I'm on the plane and I'm editing, and even when we landed, I'm going through customs. I'm still editing. It's like you just won't let something be casual. Everything has a level of intensity that I get burned out because of that. And I get burned. When I burn out, it's bad. I
see what you're saying. So you went to Tennessee State University in Nashville, right? What did that teach you? How did that shape you into the person that you are today? Because you studied classical and jazz guitar there.
I did, but I let it go though.
Oh, okay.
I learned a lot at TSU. It's my first time actually. Like, I went to school for a year at Marvin Winans Academy for Performing Arts, but TSU, I'm a student here. I'm coming in with a freshman class, and so it was like this moment to be a part of something that I never had before as a homeschooler. It's a Black college, and so it feels like an extension of Detroit, in that Detroit has that Black microcosm thing to it, but not let me not say microcosm. Detroit is a Black city. TSU was a Black microcosm. It was this bubble that was even smaller where everybody is Black, and it's just teeming with culture. And so I think TSU inspired me a lot. I was so inspired by the people that I met, the perspectives, the accents. I had a professor there, Dr. Latham.
Shout out to Dr. Latham.
Dr. Latham, he's a Morehouse man.
Oh, wow.
And he taught our leadership course. And this was in the honors program. It was a small class of people who he kind of, like, you could register for it, but he kind of curated this group of people by kind of watching what they were doing on campus. And he was hard on us.
Wow.
We were doing business case analysis, and I was like a sophomore, and he would rip us to shreds when we did a bad job. Yeah. And I would like go to the bathroom and cry and then come back. But it was Latham who taught me like the value of authenticity. He used to say to us, authenticity will be the hallmark of your generation.
Wow.
And he planted a seed that I think informed how I navigate my artistry. I get emotional thinking about Dr. Latham. He's like, you know, I don't know if you've seen The Great Debaters, Denzel Washington's
his
character
in there. Yep.
Latham was like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, so he would have us, we took a Gallup Strengths Finders assessment, this long test where you it gives you your top 5 strengths. So like my number 1 strength is like competition, and then strategy, then I'm a maximizer, and then I'm driven by belief, and I'm an activator.
Ooh,
and me
activator.
And Latham had like 3 of the same top 5 strengths. That's very rare. So I saw myself in him. He affirmed me. I remember he empowered me to host like this student forum about youth engagement, a student engagement on campus, gave me a leadership award after the fact. And then that same day, I won this talent show that was sponsored by Pepsi on campus, got $1,000 for it. I text Latham like, I won the talent show right after you gave me the award. And he said, he just texted me, great is thy faithfulness.
Wow.
And it's like,
wow.
He's one of those for me. I've had some great men to really mold me as a woman and as just a purpose-driven individual. Latham is one of those people. He is probably the most valuable thing I take away from TSU.
Wow. So you actually took a break from TSU to pursue music full time. You got on the plane, flew back to Detroit, connected with a gentleman by the name of Drake Feifer. I think urban organic lifestyle marketing, right? And what did he do for you?
Drake put me on stage. I got to give Drake his props.
Shout out to Drake.
Drake Feifer, urban organic, still doing the work, still creating opportunities for people to experience neo soul music in Detroit. So the reason that I opened for Eric Roberson, Lalah Hathaway,
Angie Stone, Eric
Benét. These are all shows.
Bilal, Lucky Day a few years ago.
Yep.
I was there.
Robert Glasper at the African American Museum. Drake is putting me on these stages.
Nice.
And so I learned how to perform.
Yeah.
There's no way to learn but to just keep getting up there. So I start on the stool. I'm always on the stool playing my guitar. And you do that so many times and you realize I'm not in control. The audience is in control. And so I eventually start to stand up with my guitar and perform, and then eventually I realized I got to put this down on some songs and walk around. And so Drake,
like you did in Grand Rapids recently, you was controlling the heck out of that crowd. I
captioned that video. Y'all can just call me crowd controller, like, because PJ, I love PJ Morton. He's been generous to me too. Just about
shout out to PJ. That's why I mentioned Gumbo. But go ahead.
That was beautiful, man. PJ calls himself the live show killer, and I was calling myself that I'm like, no, that's PJ. I'm the crowd controller. Like I got control over the crowds, and I've learned that from just being on stage a lot.
Wow. So after the Drake Feifer connection, he helped you to build your name and reputation in the city as far as music goes, right? And then you ended up going back to school and finishing. A lot of people probably don't know this about you, but you were a teacher. I think, let me see, you taught students with academic disabilities. You did, what is it, after school care situation where you ran it. There was 2 students there who were who were siblings, and you took them in as babies. Like your child. But there's something else that you're passionate about, which is actually educating kids. And it takes a lot of patience, especially when you're talking about academic disabilities and stuff. You have to have a passion for that. So
I worked in South Nashville. So when I went back to Nashville, but I always worked with kids. Even before I went to TSU, my first jobs were like summer camps. I was a director of a child care center. So that's always been my thing. When I went back, I was running after school centers in Nashville. So I did a couple after school centers there, and connected with these neighbors. We're like in the projects, you know, so the kids, even if they don't have like a diagnosis that they have an academic disability, they are disadvantaged, you know, whether that's just because of the quality of the educational system in their neighborhoods and their communities, or they're just not getting the resources that they need from like a food standpoint, just additional like support with homework after school. So it would be like 15 to 20 kids that were like mine for 3 hours after school. And I look back at that time in my life so romantically. Wow. Those were my kids, and some of them really became my kids. Like, I remember sobbing, crying when I left Nashville, because I'm like, these kids are my family, and I'm about to be 8 hours away from them. And I would go back to Nashville just, you know, to reconnect with friends or for whatever, and I would spend a day with them.
It's not like she's just passionate about music. She's passionate about literally everything that she does. And I'm sure you took your work home with you when you was
them. I took them home with me.
Because the ones that were siblings, they were like your children.
I would drop them off at home. There was 2 brothers, and then they had a sister and a little girl cousin. So the sister and the cousin, like, don't trip, they was spending the night at my house. Like, the girls were, like, it was their mom. We still keep in touch. One of them is graduating high school this month. And she was like, I remember when this little girl was like a 4th grader, finally meeting her little preteen emotions and having to walk her through that. Now she's about to graduate high school, and her mom like invited me to her graduation because we just was like that, you know.
I want people to really understand, like, even when I heard, man, first off, we got to talk about Yellow, right? There's 4 songs on there. You got the Pretty, which I love how it starts off with that La La La. It reminds me of like Stevie Wonder, My Cherie Amour. And then what my favorite song on there probably is Inspired. I think you say, let me hold on one second. The sun will be up, the month will be May, and I'll have an abundance of words to say. My blood will be rushing, thinking of you while I'm keeping it from kissing the air turning blue. Come on, man. Man, listen, you've been doing this.
I have.
Been doing this, right? And then you go, then you go to Beautiful Moments, which the video was absolutely beautiful. You had these beautiful black girls in tutus dancing and showing different parts of the city. I think Eastern Market made an appearance in there. And you were like the concept director or the creative. You came up with the concept of that video.
Yeah.
So you're not just the artist. You actually the person that's developing the concept and all that.
exactly. 100%.
Hands on with everything.
Everything. My best friend, who is she was a dance minor at Mary Grove, has always been a dancer. I met her at Winans Academy. She was in the dance program, and I was focusing on vocals. My best friend to this day. She was in the studio with me last night. We're working on my next single.
Shoot, I might find out what it is off camera, but I can't.
For sure. She she choreographed what the little dancers did in that video. So I just say, I say that to say I've really infused like a lot of my real life into these moments. And I look back at Beautiful Moments video sometimes, I'm just like, girl, what the hell did you have on? Like, what was
it was like the 70s vibe with the fro. I like
dashiki.
Yeah, the dashiki.
Barefoot. I've elevated since then.
But it's still a part of your journey though. You know what I'm saying?
It is. It's like I say at the beginning, that concept of that 10,000 hours, you know.
Kobe Bryant, he mentioned that. Yeah, you become a master at what you do.
When I look at Beautiful Moments and the dashiki and how I was super still in my India Ari barefoot vibe.
You was.
You know, I like how I centered Detroit. I don't know if I would show abandoned homes today. If you know what I'm saying.
But see, Charity, the thing is that if your music today, if you talking about the same stuff you was talking about, like I hate when people want people to just be in the box and just don't grow. Like some things that you say today should be completely the opposite of what you might have said 10 years ago due to experience alone.
It's supposed to be like that.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. It shows that I've
grown.
But
we crucify people when they do that. It's like they can't change.
Myself for it. It's like, it's okay. You were like 20.
You didn't know. Fine. You didn't know anything about life then, right? Yeah.
But I've creative directed most of it. I mean, I mentioned being in a long-term relationship around the time that Tenderheaded was being made, and my partner at that time was extremely creative and kind of taught me like how creative direction worked, and that I had a creative director in me. So he was helping out with a lot of that stuff, and then I learned it and I ran with it. So like with Cruel, I storyboarded the entire video, you know, and then sent it over to the guys that I've been partnering with, and they're always really grateful. Like, you make it a lot easier for us because you know what you want.
You know exactly what you want.
You kind of partner with us.
The marketing was brilliant for Cruel too. I don't know if you intentionally meant to like put it on that app, and then because I think that caused it to go even crazier once it actually came back out.
Let me tell you how it was. Let me tell you how it was all God.
Yeah.
I had decided in December I will put a song out every month. Period. So February came and I said, Cruel's coming out. I don't care. I didn't feel like I had a real strong rollout or like I had teased it enough, but I was putting it out. I put it out on February 16th, and one of my advisors calls me, like, he had seen a reel and he was like really interested in this song. He calls me like, is that out? I said, yeah, I put it out yesterday. He was like, I would take that down.
Wow.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Take it down. Like, that sounds so messy to me. Take it down. So I sat with it for a couple of days, and I had already connected with the people at Even about putting something up there. So I was like, okay, I'll figure out something exclusive to put up there, that because I know my followers want to spend some money on this music. They love me like that. And so I sat with what he said for a couple of days. Then I said, okay, I will take it down, and I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna put it on Even. And he wanted to support. Like, he wanted to make sure it got some playlists, and that when we put it out right. So he was working on that. It was on Even. Man, people paid for that song. Now, the other part about it that's so divine is that some people, they didn't want to take the Even route.
And so like, yo, where's that? Yeah.
They listened to the Tiny Desk submission every single day. And so my Tiny Desk performance of Cruel,
it went up. Yeah.
The numbers are better than anything else on my YouTube.
Because that was the only way of getting it.
And so look how that builds the story for the Tiny Desk submission.
Oh my God.
You know what
so
I mean?
I thought it was like this master plan all along, but it was just kind of going with the flow, pivoting, adjusting, you know, like, But
what I realized in the process is that it's like I always want to be smart about things. And I'm like, this song is about ghosting. And how cool would it be to create the experience of ghosting within the rollout? So people are like, I just fell in love with this song and it's gone. Yeah. And that's how it feels. Yeah. That's how the whole experience that I wrote about feels. And so you really were living inside of Cruel in that moment.
Man, so the reason why, like, when I think about your music, I think about D'Angelo. I'm gonna tell you why. He was on this show, I think it was Red Bull Music Academy series or something. It was his first public lecture. I think halfway through, his homeboy Questlove made an appearance on there. He talked about the making of Voodoo, and I was like it was so much that went into it. He picked all these world-renowned musicians who were really good at what they did.
Questlove on the drums.
Questlove's on the right. I think they created it at the famous Electric Lady, studio where Eric Badu, Common, all of them, the Roots. And he basically said that he knew what he wanted to do when he went in the studio, but he left room for inspiration. So they would be in there just jamming. And he said the tracks that you heard on Voodoo were actually, it was like maybe 2 hours or 3 hours or even 4 hours into the jamming session that they got to that song, which was kind of crazy. And it felt like that. It was almost like perfectly imperfect. Yes. And it was something that I had never heard before. Now, he came out with that. His first album was Brown Sugar in 1995, right? Exactly 20 years from the time you released your EP Yellow. Then he came out with Voodoo 5 years later in year 2000. Exactly 20 years from the time you released your second album, Tenderheaded, which was in 2020.
Wow.
Right? He didn't release the third album until like 14 years later, Black Messiah. I know we ain't going to wait that long before we get the third. But in that particular situation, it just really helped me to understand like the complexity, how hard it is to make that type of music. So sometimes you might feel like, man, people want something new right away, but I don't think they understand like what goes into it. So once I saw him talking about that, I had a real respect for artists like you, him, Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, India.Arie, music. So like these types of people where it got to feel authentic. It got to feel real.
And they're making love.
Yeah, they're making love. That's what you talked about.
And there's a certain pace required to make love. You're not just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
not just doing
it's a finesse.
Yeah.
And Quincy Jones said, I don't know which documentary, maybe this was on the Quincy doc, but I was also really inspired by Quincy Jones on
that was on
The
Netflix.
Greatest
I saw that
Night.
one. Yeah.
The Greatest Night in Pop also, which is not a Quincy Jones documentary, but he produced We Are the World, so you see a lot from him.
Okay.
So on one of them, he says, you always got to leave room for God on the track.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, it was almost like you go in not thinking, oh, this is exactly how it's going to come out. You can have an idea, but you better leave room for that inspiration.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm learning that you get such a better result when you allow space for God to come in. God is so much.
She said it way better than I could have said it. Yeah, that's it.
God is just way bigger than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you want God to maximize this thing. He gave it to you anyway.
Yeah.
So you want to leave room for God on the track. And when I look at this experience that I've had with Cruel, it's like, wow, God, you did that. Like, obviously it's May. I haven't put out a song every month because I realized that actually when you have great songs, you need to promote them. Like, you need to take time and let people discover these songs. There are people,
especially the songs you write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you think about Eclipse, like, it was this moment in time. If you got it, you got it. But then we moved on. I just couldn't do that with Cruel because it had too much potential to be like a commercial success.
A hit.
Yeah, a hit. And so,
absolute hit. Yeah.
we going for radio next and all of that. And so we'll put an EP out with some more songs, and so maybe it'll even out that by the 6th month there's 6 songs total. But this, like, I kind of felt like I'm gonna show everybody that is tired of me taking so long that I can drop every month. And it was like, you're trying to prove something to people that you don't have to. And Cruel, it's been fun to just work one song and to be smart
and give it your
about
all.
it.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So that marketing strategy is like, oh, I feel like that's where I made room for God. It's like, I thought that I would put this out and just figure out what happens, but it's like, no, taking it off, I made money. People showed me how much they want to support me financially. The Tiny Desk moment, all of those things were connected in a way that I could not have planned for if I was just controlling it and trying to be the executive director of my life. Like, no, that's God's role.
Oh, I love that. So with D'Angelo, he basically said, because, you know, he ushered in the whole neo soul. I think that's when I first heard the term.
Neo soul, yeah.
But he said he was cool with it. He didn't really try to separate himself from it. He respected it for what it was. But he said, anytime you put a label on something, you put it in a box.
Yeah.
Like, do you oftentimes, because again, you, like I described the gumbo, you're influenced by so many different things. So do you sometimes feel away when people might say, oh, Charity, the soul singer or the R&B singer?
Yeah, because I don't think I'm either. Like, I don't think I'm a neo soul artist. I definitely don't resonate with R&B as like my genre. If anything, I resonate with Motown as a sentiment and as an intention. The way that they were writing at Motown.
It feels like Motown. You might be the only person here in Detroit that captures that in a more updated way, I guess, in a more like, contemporary way.
Like maybe neo Motown, but we don't want to put neo on. We don't need to put neo
we don't need to put it on there. Yeah, right.
It's the intention of Motown.
You hear the instruments in the music, the lyrics, you can feel it. You know what I'm saying?
It's the simplicity of the lyric, yet it's armed with emotion and vulnerability at the same time. I study Smokey Robinson as a writer. I listen to songs as popular as My Girl, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold on.
This is really good. And me and Iman talk about this all the time, like writing with no fat, being a no fat writer. So like I'll write a verse and then go back and really James Blake said this. He said he writes a draft and then he goes back to make sure he's wasted no words. I don't want to waste any words.
It don't feel like no wasted. It's similar to Kobe Bryant where they said his footwork was so good there's no wasted movement. It's like that with your music.
And I think that's what it takes to be a great. There is no waste of resources, you know? And so I think that's how the Motown records were written.
That's how they were, yeah.
Plus the live instrumentation, and then they give you joy. It's a certain, even Eclipse, which is so heavy, it's still something bright about it. It's something bright about my music. And so if anything, I resonate with Motown.
We about to run through these tracks, man. I'm gonna try to do this as quick as, because I know she got stuff to do. She got to promote Cruel. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, but we're gonna try to run through this. Millennials, we're all addicted to instant gratification. Blame Apple, Google, and IG notifications. They make you feel like things just blow up, but in your real life, they move much slower. Listen, if that's the definition of a millennial.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
You spoke to me.
Yeah. It's like we grow up in this, we become adults within this framework that says anything you want to know. What's Michael Jordan's birthday? Just Google it. You know, what's anything you want to know. How much butter should I use to make whatever the hell? You know it like that.
Yeah.
We get addicted to, your life is not on that same track though.
Yeah.
We're actually the late bloomers, and it creates this dissonance where you're like either mad at yourself or mad at God. And so I was hoping that millennials could create a sigh of relief in that, oh, we're being mind fucked because everything else is going fast, but our generation
Like
actually goes slow.
Absolutely. Now we got Almost Something. So hard to
That's
believe we were only almost something. I guess I'm a fool for believing in you. And I thought that was so cool because I got, female friends that talk to me about just believing in somebody when they shouldn't. It's like they give you all these red flags, all these signs, and you just ignore them, and you let somebody sort of string you along by giving you just enough, but not what you want in a situation. So I just thought that really resonated, man.
Yeah, that's my first situationship song. Almost Something is about like getting very close. You've experienced some intimacy, but not enough to really like seal the deal.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of music that talks about that kind of thing in the way that Cruel and Almost Something as its predecessor does. So it's like, let me shine some light on how difficult it is to go through the pain of situationships. It really be harder than breakups sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the reason why is because of Elephant, right? Because now that there's only me, I kind of miss your company, right? So you talk about, the saying, what is it? Well, so we ain't gonna address the elephant in the room. Like if you with somebody, you might be, let's say 90% of the conversations you have with somebody is them. 85% of the time you go out with somebody is them. So your lives become so integrated with each other. And then once they leave, you realize, and it goes back to, oh my God, how did you become my God? Because I depend on you so much. And now I realize how empty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You missed the presence after that because they took up so much space.
I have to say this about Elephant.
Yeah.
It's to me one of my more avant-garde songs because the verse and the first verse and the second verse are essentially identical, except one is written from the perspective of the elephant being in the room, and the elephant is gone. And so, like the first verse says,
I gotta listen to it again after this.
So the first verse says, "You're always stomping around. You take up too much space, and the pale color of your skin has filled this place. Oh elephant, oh elephant." Second verse says, "Now that you're not around, there's so much empty space and countless possibilities to fill this place. Oh elephant, elephant."
Yeah.
Like they're identical, just from different positions. It's there and it's gone. And so it's literally the grief of like, I can't stand you. I want you out my life, but now that you're gone, I'm alone and I gotta face myself.
Oh, it's like those. It creates this opposite where it's like, I know you don't want them around, but you want them. I don't know. It's something about it that just appeals to me, and that's so relatable, right? When it comes to breakups and all of that stuff. Now you got Double Dutch because you're committing emotional gluttony because he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's got to jump 2 ropes because one just won't do. Like one woman ain't enough for this guy. Come on, I know all the women. I know people can relate to that. It's crazy.
Yeah, I wrote Double Dutch when I was 21.
Get that.
Yep. I remember when I was back from TSU, I was taking some classes at Wayne State, and I was in my car, and Double Dutch was coming to me. Yeah. That's one of the songs too. I truly do write within metaphors like the best.
Miss Mary Mac.
Yeah. It's like the imagery of it all.
Yeah.
So that was like my first experience with truly being cheated on, and that's my silver lining from the experience. I got something great from it.
Okay, self-love, right? So this right here is more like, listen, if I'm going through a breakup, I don't need this next person to come along and try to save me. Let me love on myself and experience whatever it is I'm experiencing, heal from it, all this stuff or whatever. I ain't got to jump back into the arms of somebody else to save me. Is that what?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
I have a beautiful story about self-love. I was in pain, fresh off a breakup, and I had to perform Yellow, I was doing the release show for Yellow like the week after, and so I'm in rehearsals and I'm like in emotional turmoil. And I started writing self-love to like try to like give myself some comfort. And the bridge to me is the most special part. It says, I'll treat you good, I'll hold you tight, I'll be your savior, I'll be your light.
I love the bridge
and
on that.
Yeah, it 3 times, and it is really like an altar call.
That falsetto too.
Like from my heart to my heart. I was trying to create the moment of like rededicating, you know, church kids, you understand that moment where you rededicate your life to Christ, this altar moment. And I remember my big sister, I talked about how she gave me like taste in music. She heard me writing it upstairs at my mom's house, and she was like, whoa. Like, this is so special.
See, that's where the double entendre, because I didn't know, I took it as that.
Yeah.
But then I was like, could it also mean like it's that other guy that comes along and that's like looking to be a rebound? Are you speaking through that perspective? So I think that's dope that you confirmed what I thought it was.
Yes.
But I had questions just because how rich your writing is or whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so now you got Black Magic, right? Which is, I love that song too, because it just speaks to your resilience. If you get knocked down however many times, if you fall however many times, you gonna get right back up. It just speaks to the strength in you.
Yeah, wrote it in the car. This is also a breakup. I'm going through a breakup. This breakup has knocked the wind out of me. I done lost weight and everything. And I finally got to the other side of the pain. And I tell people this, like, pain is a blink of an eye. You have the ability to heal yourself, and you're going to feel it at some point in this process. And the day that I finally felt it lift off me, I remember I was driving my little Pontiac Grand Am in Nashville, and I was thinking about the women that I come from. And if they have that in them to do what they've done, Black women, to nurture and create community. You know, we can go as far back to a Harriet Tubman, who's a literal superhero that actually existed. Then I certainly can get over this person that didn't want me. And so I love Black Magic because it's relevant in so many spaces, like from a female perspective, from a Black woman's perspective. It's like, I really am supernatural in this regard.
Okay, that's dope. Oh, I love that. Okay, so let me see. Here we go. Wonder. Right. I took your ugliness, cleaned up your mess, played dress up with the skeletons inside your closet.
You know these songs.
Listen, come on now. I've been listening since 2020. Played dress up with the skeletons inside your closet, and I removed the dress code. I let them wear my best clothes. It's almost like getting lost and losing yourself in the person that you with, questioning yourself. Like, am I even enough for anybody? Is something wrong with me? I just thought that was so dope. I ain't gonna
lie, that's good writing right there. That's good writing. It's funny too, because a couple of songs go together, like they're written at the same time. So Double Dutch and Wonder happened.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense.
In my life. That's good writing. Play dress up with the skeletons inside your closet. That's like, I saw the nasty dark parts of you, and I dressed them beautifully. Ooh. I removed the dress code. I let them wear my best clothes. That's like, I truly accepted you, like, for who you are, like the nasty parts of you, and then you went and played Double Dutch. It was cold. That's cold.
Yeah. Ooh. So Colorblind, I love this one because, like, I always tell, I was watching this couple, they just got engaged like after dating for 9 months, and the woman was talking about how they met and everything, and she said, man, it's like, you know, I'm sure I know I'm a lot to love, you know, because of my attitude. And the dude was like, you ain't hard to love. And he said, I actually saw strength in the things that you feel are weaknesses, because beneath your attitude, what it conveyed to me is that you care and you don't want to let me down, you know. And he was able to see her for all of the beautiful facets that existed, like color. He didn't view her through a black and white lens. And that's what I thought that song meant.
Absolutely.
Come on, man.
Come on. I got to shout my sister out again. And she sent me, my sister Sade, she sent me a poem that she was writing. And I was like, whoa, it was essentially the concept of colorblind already. I was like, oh my God, can I extend this into a song? And it became Colorblind. Colorblind was written around the same time as Black Magic as well.
Okay, it makes sense. I love this. Okay, so now we got Morning, which I love, because what it's saying is that, and it's interesting because now I'm just realizing this. Okay, so Morning is more like viewing time as the hero. Like, I'm in this dark space, it's cloudy, and I just can't wait for the morning to show up, you know. And sometimes I feel like it's taking forever to come. Now on Mr. Time, the interesting thing is now time becomes the villain. Because you done got away from me. When I was younger, I said I was going to do this. I said I was going to be married by this age. And now all of a sudden, it ain't happening. Time, slow down.
And those songs are written at the, yes.
I just realized that when you was pairing them up like that, I said, that's so crazy.
Yeah, those two are written at the same time. Morning, I recommend that creators read this Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Okay. It reframed my relationship with my inspiration. And I was just in the shower and morning kind of came to me. I'm like, actually, the scripture, joy comes in the morning. I'm like, the morning takes forever to come. You will be actually, for me, when I wake up, when I'm going through something, that's the hardest part of the day. The morning actually sucks. So I was experiencing this resentment around time in general at that time. So, got
you. Okay, I love Pretty was the same song as what was on the EP, but it was just a bit more hip hop sort of, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to before, it was more soulful, I think, right? And then you have More Cake. There's More Cake than Wedding Cake. There's More Dreams than Diamond Rings. There's More You're Here to Change than Your Last Name. There's More Cake for You. Yeah, I thought that was dope.
Yeah, I wrote it when I was probably 25, and like my friends had like actually started getting married, and I noticed that there was this culture around like women were being validated as like something new once they got engaged and married, and had like new friend groups and like the wives club, and I'm like, oh, so like I can't come to like y'all's dinner, and I just
so I ain't invited no more.
I just thought I found it obnoxious so much that how annoyed I was by it. It inspired me.
And I love it too. That man, great. Oh my, I love it because there's gonna be women out there who don't get married. So what do we just do? Discard them, throw them away? It's like they have to understand that there's more to life. That might be a big part of life. I'm not saying it isn't, but like, what do you do with those people?
And how do we celebrate them?
How do we celebrate them, right? Yeah. Man, so now we got to get to, I'm just such a big fan. This one's going to be 10 more minutes, y'all, I promise. We got to get to season, right? Because, oh man, let me see. Hold on. A plug in the tree, spike me a drink, get under the covers, baby, get under me, right? Snowed in. I love that.
I tried to write Snowed in very, I was like, really in like this Motown space. I was listening to not listening to because I wrote it in the fall, but I was inspired by Motown Christmas, like those very soulful Christmas records that don't feel cliche. And so I wanted them to really have that like just Marvin Gaye kind of feel, like you could slow dance to your boo by the tree.
Oh, you could. Just me and my wife was definitely, because it came out in December of 2022. So the other song on there, which I commented underneath your post, it was called Days Like Christmas, and I'm like, how can somebody create something so jovial but yet it's sexy at the same time? It's romantic at the same time. And then Season, which was a big moment because you usually ride solo dolo, and you featured Early Mac. Shout out to him. I'm a fan of him too.
Good friend.
But his voice, is laid back, confident delivery, and aesthetically it went perfect with that song.
Yeah, I have to say this about the project. Days Like Christmas, all of it was very serendipitous. I performed that project at Del Mar, I think on December 16th, and my grandmother went into hospice the very next day, and over the next 2 weeks, she would pass away. And there's lines in the song that my family found like almost spooky, like, whoa, it felt prophetic. So, is it cold outside, baby? I want to know. And that Christmas when you left me, did it snow? It had not snowed. My grandmother passed on December 22nd, and her birthday was September 22nd. The project came out on December 2nd. There was all of these tools. She passed on December 22nd. It had not snowed that December until we got the call that she had passed away. And I'm just kind of on my knees looking out the window like a child, and it starts to snow. And it was like, what? And that Christmas when you left me, did it snow? Like, all of it felt so prophetic. And so that project is really special to me and my family because we were grieving big time. And we had these songs to kind of like help us through.
Wow. I mean, I love that entire album, man. So now I gotta, I guess we're gonna have to get into some of your tweets, man. We'll close it.
Oh my God.
We'll close it on this, and we'll try to close it on this because Charity got stuff to do. She got to promote Cruel. So the first tweet, and these were some tweets in 2024. You said, you said you can tell how you wouldn't be able to tell how tender-headed I am by how much I get braids. I'll be in that chair about to have a seizure. So that goes to my point or my question. Why did you call the album Tender-Headed? And I think I know, but I want you to explain it.
Oh, it's funny. I haven't thought about this for a while, so I want to make sure I answer this right.
Yeah.
I always finish the album and then name it. Same thing with Season. Like I never have a clue what I'm about to name it. So the album was done. It was time to name it. And okay, it's coming back to me. It's coming back. Beyonce had put out Lemonade maybe a year. I can't remember what year it came out. So maybe a year or so before Tender, or at least before I named it. And Lemonade showed me that we had permission to center Black womanhood in our art. I was blown away by the way that aesthetically, in terms of the storytelling, it has centered Black woman. It was our pain. It was what we show up as from the hood to like elevated, like the rich shit plus the like hood shit. It was all there. And my mind was blown. And so what I was adamant about doing was centering Black womanhood and Tender-Headed. I understood that I was telling the story like a Black girl's coming of age story. Through Mr. Time, more like I'm dealing with all of these things. And so when you think about a Black woman coming of age, we all get called tender-headed probably, or we heard it. And it's not something to be proud of. Like when you get called tender-headed, it is not a badge of honor. And so in the same way that I'm vulnerable and I'm sensitive, and it hasn't always been a badge of honor for me, it's been kind of a burden. Tender-headed as a metaphor represented that within a Black female hair staple.
Yeah, I got you. Dang, that's cold. Okay. Here's another one. I don't give a F. Cruel is a hit. I don't give a F.
I tweeted that.
You tweeted that. That was prophetic too. You was right. So just how sure you was of it, how confident you were, like, yo, this feels different before it even blew up like it did.
Yeah.
So I just, it was simple, a few words, but it was so true.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cruel is a hit. I don't give a F. Yeah, I did tweet that.
You did tweet that. Here's another one. You said, I'm not necessarily as emotionally mature as I am self-aware and accountable. Let's see. You said, wait, hold on. You said, sometimes I'll be wrong or something like that. Sometimes I'll be wrong and I don't have no problem apologizing. Sometimes I'll be dead ass wrong and I don't have no problem apologizing for it.
Yeah.
And I thought the accountability, it's the same accountability that was in Almost Something, right? And you hear artists and you hear these songs and people oftentimes don't really, they're not vulnerable enough to admit where they went wrong.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a great tweet.
I have learned, in order to get where I want to go, I have to grow. And I'm not going to grow if I'm not self-aware and accountable about the ways I be dead ass wrong. Yeah. So I be apologizing like, oh, my bad, I messed up there.
That's more important than the emotional maturity to me, because it's like everybody is going to fall short. I don't care how emotionally mature you think you are, but if you can't be self-aware enough to know that you fell short and do what's necessary to correct it or get better, then what does it matter?
You should probably be telling one person a month. At least, if you human and you doing it right, I'm sorry. I messed up there.
And you better have the people in your circle that's going to tell you too.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. Okay. I think I'm going to end it on this one. This was my favorite tweet right here. And I think this really sums up your journey. I better get this right. Let me see. The moment you succumb to darkness and let it infiltrate your thought process and inform your world view, it has won. Your softness and your joy is your crowning glory. If you're going to fight for anything, fight for your right to remain in the light. And I thought that was so dope, because it's like, regardless of what you've been throughout your life, you haven't succumbed to the darkness. You know what I'm saying? That's powerful when you are up against monsters, but you don't become a monster in the process of fighting those very same monsters.
Your memory is impressive. I gotta say that.
I've been studying you for. I told you I couldn't wait for this.
I'm not gonna be too long-winded.
That's okay.
When I shine some light on that, but I experienced, like, as I got into different spaces over the last year, I experienced like what it feels like to have like a hater, like somebody who really is trying to hurt me, trying to embarrass me, trying to hurt my feelings actively. And I had to really start practicing staying in the light, because it's the moment that I succumb to the darkness and get on what they're on, then they have won. And when I lose my softness, I literally I turn the switch off on my anointing.
Wow. Oh my God. Wow.
Because that's who I am. That's what makes me great. That's what makes these songs great. So I'm fighting for that like tooth and nail.
Every day I am. Yep. I know I am every day, man. And so I just want to really like thank you for inspiring me. And you mentioned something about like my memory. It's really not, and I thank you for that compliment, but that's why I only talk to people that I really am inspired by, because it's easy. Yeah. Because a lot of these songs have helped me. Yeah. So even being a guy, and I know people might think, oh, she only write it for women. A lot of these messages are universal. Man, so I just want to thank you for helping me, helping my wife and other people that I've turned on to your music. So I'm
so grateful, and I'm so affirmed after this conversation. You
straight up. Know. Okay. So you got me blushing, man. So hey, listen, if any final words, and also whenever you're ready after your final words, you can look into this camera and tell people where to follow you.
Yeah. I would say stick with me. I'm continuing to grow and putting out as much art as I can. I'm really grateful that it has resonated with people like yourself, and I imagine even more. So like I said, this is affirming. I feel like fully, deeply, truly in my purpose right now, and especially after this conversation. So you guys can find me on Instagram at Charity, CHARITY. My website don't be super updated, but it's charitytheartist.com. Cruel is back. It is no longer only on Even. You can stream it on all streaming platforms. Run it up. We going for the radio. Send it to your group chat. Post it on your story. Play it at your job. All of that. We want this song to go to the world, and y'all got to help me do it. So, yeah.
Man, thank you, God, for letting me run into Charity at Rite Aid last month, because it's crazy how God be working that out, because she wouldn't have been on this show right now. So I'm just fanning out. I'm appreciative. Conversations with TinBridge, y'all. Peace.